recording. Hello, Opa.
Hi, Karoline.
This is your interview. What is your full name?
My full name is Walter George Schley.
Ah, that's very interesting. When were you born?
March 20th, 1932.
March 20th, 1932. Where were you born?
Actually, it was in the house on Magazine Street. We lived above the barber shop.
Where was the barber shop?
On Magazine Street, it was close to Harmony, I think, between Harmony and Pleasant.
How long was the barber shop there? I know you were born with a midwife, weren't you?
Yes.
And Henrietta was born with
At Turo.
Mm-hmm. Why was that?
It was during the Depression, and I guess Tante Marietta was born in 1930, and the Depression started. The crash started in 1929, so I think things got a little worse then.
Got a little tight. I guess let's briefly go over how did your parents wind up here?
It was kind of an interesting story. My father was the ship's barber on the ship called the Breslau, and the Breslau was in New Orleans when World War I broke out. And so he, rather than just sit on the ship, not all of them, but a number of the other people on the ship figured the war would be over in a couple of weeks and they would be able to go home. But my father said, well, he'd better go on land and try to get a job, which he did. And he did get a job with another barber at a different place on Magazine Street. I think it was closer to Louisiana Avenue. And of course the war continued, and he ended up staying in New Orleans. The war went on, and so he applied for citizenship, and I think he did. It cost him about $3 to apply, and I think it was considered either an undesirable alien or some such thing like that. But that's how he ended up in New Orleans.
And that was what year again? That was...
That had to be in 1914.
1914.
That was when the war broke out in Europe. The United States wasn't involved in the war at that time. How
did he meet your mother?
Well, he knew my mother because they lived in the same little village in the Black Forest, Hensel-Taylor. That was... a small village that probably had maybe 200 or 300 people in the whole village. And my mother's family, they were the Gartners, and they lived across the street from my father's family, the Schleys. And but he wasn't engaged. He was engaged actually to someone else at the time.
I heard that.
He had gone. Everybody had to serve in the military for a couple of years, even though there was no war on at the time. And then when he was getting ready to leave the military service, he figured he would get a job, and he applied in Bremerhaven, and I don't know why, but he figured he'd get a job there. Mm-hmm. And Bremerhaven was a big seaport. So he applied by mail, and then he was accepted. So that's where he went right after the service. They wouldn't even let him go home first, but the military paid their way either home or to where they had a job. And I guess so my father couldn't even go home. He had to go to his job. And he stayed, and he did come home after a while because he was there a while and came to visit. But in Bremerhaven, it was a fairly big barbershop, and they had a lot of people that went to see then. Mm-hmm. And so he had gotten several offers to go to see, and he was there a while. And while he was in Bremerhaven, he became engaged to a young lady there, and he even had built a house. So, but then then he happened to have this job on the Breslau, and it was going to the United States. And when he was in the United States, that's when World War One broke out. And what happened, there were a number of things happened, but there was another man, another barber on the ship on the Breslau, and he worked at Cobb's restaurant. And on the way to work one night, he found a horseshoe, and he decided what he better do is put the horseshoe in an alley. So when he returned from work, he would pick it up. And as he got off of work and he went in the alley to pick up the horseshoe, the police stopped him, and they arrested him. And they claim he was so distraught he committed suicide, but we don't know the details of that story. But my father's fiancée found out that the barber on the Breslau was dead, so she married someone else, and that kind of spoiled my father's plans for that wedding. But after the war, he made arrangements to sell that house, and then he went over, got a ticket on a ship, and went over to collect his money. And at that time, the inflation was so bad, by the time he got his money at the agreed price, all he could buy was a necktie with the money that he got for the house.
Where was the house again? It was in
Bremerhaven.
So it'd probably be worth quite a lot now, huh?
Oh, I mean, this was in
timing.
When did World War One end? That was probably in 18 or 19 or something. So from that time on, a lot of construction and things took place, and a lot of the old stuff was, it could have been completely bombed out too during the war, so we don't really know what happened.
So he settled in.
He settled in, and then he, of course, he had no more fiancée, so he remembered my mother's family, and he remembered my mother, and thought, well, that might be a good choice, so he started writing her, and she was living as an au pair in Switzerland at the time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so he proposed, and then she accepted, and then she came to the United States, but she came in through Ellis Island. And my father had a sister and a brother-in-law living in New Jersey at the time. So my mother stayed with my aunt and uncle until they came down, and then they were married when she came to New Orleans. They were married at the St. Matthew's. It was a German evangelical church, and the reason they did that is some of my father's first friends here were members of that church, and the pastor was also from the Black Forest. His name was Schweikart, and so that's how my parents got married.
And then, so did he have the barbershop when he sent? You said when he sent.
He worked then for Mr. Bleicher. That was where the barbershop, where he spent the rest of his career at the barbershop. That was closer to Harmony Street, between, what did I say, Harmony and Pleasant.
And you and Timetta were born.
We were born
close after the wedding, or soon after they got, or were they settled for a while?
If they were married in 29, and then Merida was in 30, and then I was thinking 32. So
yeah.
So
Grossmama said you never gave her a lick of trouble.
Well,
or Grosspapa said you never gave.
Well, Grosspapa was at work, and when we lived on Arnold Road, and there was a lot to do, and
I noticed you have a little blue spot on your forehead. Do you want to tell us that story?
Well, that was an interesting story. Somehow we'd gotten one of these humongous pencils that must have been about half an inch in diameter and about at least 10 inches long, and I forget what it's called, the Big Chief or something, and it was laying around one day, and there was something that I did probably that disturbed my sister, so she threw it at me. And it make a little blue mark in my head.
We should zoom in on that. I wonder if I know how to do that. Hold on. Let's see. No, I don't know how. Okay. We're back on.
Okay.
You want to, actually, I do remember one story that, did didn't the midwife kiss you or something? And
I think she had the midwife came and she had an assistant, and I guess the assistant, the lady that was assisting her, I guess had some sort of either fever blisters or something like that, and that somehow I got infected from that, and I had this, must have been a pretty bad rash, and I know it was kind of tough on my parents, and they, in fact, there was a doctor.
didn't he say something pretty harsh?
Well, he thought that I wasn't going to make it. Is probably what's going to happen. He said, no, that kid's not going to make it. And because my father and mother spent a lot of time and probably lost a lot of sleep over it, but took care of me, and I did pull
I
through.
think he said, Grosspapa said something like, they said I had to throw that baby away, and I wrapped him in castor oil, or it sounded like I remembered some story like that.
Probably some kind of oil.
But he was very proud that he wrapped it.
And he was, he
Kept you
worked
clean.
real hard, and so.
Well, I know that you lived at the barber shop. Why did you guys move from the barber shop to Arnold Road?
Well, that was, my father had, I guess, developed a cough, and being a barber, there was a lot of powder and hair and stuff like that, and he developed a cough, and he had gone, the doctor came to the house, so he had gone to the doctor, and one of the doctors told him, well, he says, George, you better move out in the country where you can get some fresh air, otherwise you're probably going to die soon. So then he looked for some property in the parish, and we had a friend of the family that knew of a house that was for sale, and it was on about a 3-acre piece of ground, and so he was able to borrow some money on his insurance policy, and so that's how we ended up on Arnold Road.
Oh. And that was near the Marcellus Hotel, right?
The what?
The Marcellus Hotel? Was that the one?
The
Arnold Road, wasn't that near the hotel? The Marcellus Hotel?
No. Oh, that was, you mean the one that was,
I got that
the
wrong.
Marcellus family, that came much later,
Oh,
but
okay.
that was on Shrewsbury Road. That's
Okay.
That's
I got that
true.
one.
That was, in fact, one of my brother-in-law's aunt and uncle owned that house. It was on the River Road in Shrewsbury, and they lived there a while. And then forget what time it was. Probably in either the late 40s, early 50s, they moved into town and then sold the property. And I think that's when the Marcellus family bought that, and he made it was a fairly nice sized piece of property, and he had made a very nice motel out of that area, or that piece of property. In fact, it was at the time that during the civil rights era, before the civil rights era, where a lot of the African Americans had no place to go in town. There were probably a few places, but kind of a really bad situation. So he had nice facilities. So a lot of the people who were probably well known in the civil rights era stayed there while they were in New Orleans. So, but unfortunately, it wasn't saved. It was ended up being torn down, and it's just an empty lot now. But a lot of history happened there.
And did Judge, was that near Judge Arnold?
Judge Arnold, he was a justice of the peace. His father was a judge before him. And the Arnold, if you look at the very old maps, you can see the various tracts of land that radiate off of the river heading toward the lake. And I think the Arnold family had a section that was, and I don't know how wide it was, but I think it included, must at least 2 blocks on the river road, and then it headed toward the lake as a very narrow triangle. And there's still the Arnold Road goes all the way out toward the lake. That's North Arnold Road from the river to the lake. And that must have been either a land grant or I'm not too sure what that was, but that was from the family. And then he ran late. He was just justice of the peace, but everybody called him Judge Arnold.
I guess those were your school years, like your
right.
And
that
then,
was.
Did you walk to school?
I did walk. Well, when I was in grammar school, first and second, or even up to sixth grade, my father would drive us to school before he went to work, because he still had the barber shop on Magazine Street. So he would drop us off at school, which was Jefferson Elementary School, and that was I want to say about a half a mile from the Huey Long Bridge, right on Jefferson Highway, and it's still a school. The location is still there. And then while I was in school, they built. It's Fairchild now, but they built a high school. At that time, it was a grammar school and high school all in one. There weren't that many people living in Jefferson at the time. So as the population grew, they needed more space. And the high school was built on a tract of land that was about a mile closer toward New Orleans than the old grammar school.
So, I wanted to ask you too, just about like your choices, like with. I know you went to Korea, and then you went to Tulane, and you met Mom. I don't know the orders of all of that.
Well, I finished high school in 1950, and then I enrolled in Tulane in the School of Architecture, and then finished a year and almost a half, and then the Korean War was going on at the time, so also the draft was in. People were being drafted, so so I went in the service for 2 years, and actually 51 and I guess must have been 52 and 53. I was in the service, and then I came back on the GI Bill, and then I finished. It took a while, but I think I finally graduated in 58. And then I'm trying to think of the sequence of events. Well, I met Ingrid in I think 61 or 60. I think probably late in 61, and we were introduced by a friend of my sister Marietta. Marietta had a friend, Lorraine Faget, and her maiden name was Volker, and she lived in Kenner, and she went to Newcomb with my sister, and her father had a fairly large house, and he rented out apartments, and so she told Ingrid that she knew a German family that lived in Jefferson, and so that's how we were introduced.
The Prince of Jefferson.
We married then in 1963.
Oh, cute. The cutest.
Yeah.
And then you had.
And then we had
three children.
3 marvelous children. And they grew up.
The gifts from heaven.
And then they married.
You built. Well, where did you live when we were little? I know George and Teresa. Wait 1 second. Okay. Let's go back to those cute, adorable children. So wait, you had a job, but Mom had a job at Tulane, right? She was a slide librarian, right? Among
other jobs she finally, she did get a job at Tulane in the, it was in the zoology department, had a library. It was a branch of the Tulane Library. It was called the Mead Library.
Oh, okay.
And she worked there about a year or so, and she met one of the other librarians that was the architectural school library. Betty Lockett was her name, and they were talking, and then she said, well, she told Betty Lockett that we were engaged, and then Betty Lockett said, well, there was an opening in one of the jobs at Tulane, and it was as a draftsman in the resident architect's office. That was what it was. So she said there was. So I applied for that, and I got a job at Tulane. So that was in, I guess, early in '63, and we were married then in October in '63, and that's I think I stayed at Tulane working there, which was a very nice job. Finally, I was transferred over to the physical plant department where we did smaller well, not even smaller projects, but we did how projects could be done in-house. And it was a great job because it allowed me to meet so many of the interesting people at Tulane, and I think there was a big bonus. And then
putting your kids through
one of the bigger benefits were that our children got tuition waivers at Tulane, and that was a super benefit. So that was a very pleasant part of my life. And then the kids grew up and married, and they have wonderful families, and which makes me very happy. And so things worked out real well.
And I believe you're still making your artwork, which is
kind of a little hobby, fiddling around with some.
When did you start fiddling around with wood and carving? That's what I grew up with, my daddy carving things for me all the time, so I became an artist.
I think I started out fiddling with clay. I bought my sisters, I had 3 daughters, and they lived next door to us when we lived on Arnold Road, and I bought some clay, and we would make little figures and things like that. And then later I started, tried carving with wood and other things like that. So that was a lot of fun, and so Karoline loved to do artwork, and Teresa too, and then George, and we carved stuff for them, little figurines, and that's how I got interested in carving with the wood.
George liked to go fishing with you.
Yeah, we would go fishing too.
Lots of fishing. I guess we all had different things that we tied you into doing.
Well, the river was so close by, and at that time we were allowed to go on the Batcher, and there were little fishing holes there, and that was a lot of fun. And the neighborhood kids all came along, and
Roger and Roger.
Although we didn't catch too many fish.
It was fun though, and then all those good trips to the Smoky Mountains.
We loved the Smoky Mountains. That's where Ingrid and I went on a honeymoon to the Smoky Mountains, and then we took several trips after that. And Ingrid loved to climb on the paths, and wasn't really mountain climbing, but there was some really nice trails we could go on. And the kids liked to do that too.
Well, I think I was more like to register and skip ahead.
Register.
Fall off the bridges. Those were fun trips, though. Let me see 1 second. So, who's your favorite kid? No, just kidding.
I'm good.
Just kidding.
They're all my favorites. The kids and the grandkids, and it's.
So you think being a creative person is just a good way to live? I'm putting the words in your mouth, but it seems like you're always happy and you're always creating.
I think I'm lucky. I have a great family and great neighbors and friends, and so life's been pretty good.
Well, maybe if we think of some more stories, we'll record them.
Okay.
Judge Arnold's stories soon.
We'll have to be careful because we don't want to say things that'll get us into trouble.
Yeah, but I don't want to put that up. Get that in social media.
Right.
All right, I guess we'll do. Signing off.